Hello and welcome to the Real Hernando. This podcast was created to highlight our amazing local community and small businesses here in Hernando, Mississippi. I am your host, Derek, and today I'm talking with Steve and Karin Cubbage, owners of Area 51 Ice Cream. Area 51 Ice Cream is a Hernando staple. They serve handmade artisan ice cream made from scratch daily. They truly believe that the best ingredients make the best ice cream. They do this by using natural in-season produce, working closely with other small local businesses, and frequenting the Hernando Farmers Market. This is to make sure the ice cream is always the freshest, all while supporting the local community. Area 51 has been featured in Food Network magazine and is on countless blogs and apps with 5-star ratings across the board. Steve, Karin, thanks for being here today.
Oh man, it's great.
And thanks for inviting me into your establishment here. This is great. It smells delicious in here. So awesome. So I'm here to talk to y'all about your background, and then quickly leading up to how you started this company and how it's operating now. So we also have to pretend that I know everyone knows you guys and this community is well knit, but there's going to be viewers and listeners that don't. So why don't we start with your names and where y'all are from?
Sure.
So I'm Karin. We're from Kansas City.
I'm Steve.
That's where we met.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start there. So when did you all meet? Like what year was that?
We met at youth group at church when we were kids.
Wow.
So we started dating when I was in junior high, so middle school.
Yeah. So
Wow.
junior high sweethearts, I guess.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So what was that, 15 years ago?
Pretty much. We've been married for 33 years now.
Wow.
So
Yeah, and dated probably 3-4 years before that.
probably 3.
So you got
something
married
like that.
very young then.
We did.
Yeah.
Like
Too young.
Just out of high school?
Just
I was in high school.
in high school
Wow.
for her.
Wow, look at you, stud.
Yeah.
I don't recommend
I don't know
it.
if
I
that's-
don't recommend it.
That might not be accepted in 2021, right?
It wasn't accepted then. Really.
This might be an edit.
Oh, cool. So you grew up in Kansas City.
Yep.
What was Kansas City like growing up?
Kansas City, I mean, it's kind of the quintessential Midwestern city. It feels like a smaller place than it is. I mean, it's a full-blown city, but I mean, it seems like everyone knows each other. It's
Not like
very
this.
tight-knit for sure
Yeah.
as far as a city goes.
Were you
know.
on the Missouri side or
Kansas.
The Kansas side, okay.
Kansas, please.
What is it? Well, I'm glad I asked that because I've been to the one in Missouri, but not the one in Kansas. And
Yeah.
What is it like
It's
having a city, but it branches over 2 states? I know we have Memphis and West Memphis, but it's not Memphis and Memphis.
Yeah.
right.
What is that like?
Well, we never lived, well, not never, but like Steve grew up in Kansas City, Kansas, and I lived in another county, sort of like, I guess you'd say like,
They were adjoining.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
maybe like Horn Lake and Hernando. So,
Okay.
a little bit further away, but I wasn't actually in Kansas City, Kansas, but
Okay.
if people ask you where you're from, it's like here you might say you live in Memphis, so.
Right. Yeah, which I do.
Yeah.
I do too. Where you live? I go the Memphis area.
Yeah, exactly.
If they don't know what Hernando, Mississippi is.
But Kansans and Missourians are pretty territorial, and
I would gather
they're
that,
each pretty proud of which side they come from, and
because I would gather that college sports are big.
definitely.
I'm sure that's like
Not-
a
not as-
Mason-Dixie line, right?
Not as big as like Chiefs and Royals. Like I worked at the Royal Stadium for a while. That's really the big thing. College is much more prevalent here than it was at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than the KU-MU rivalry, but
Yeah.
outside of that, people mostly care about the pro sports there. But the state line it's kind of interesting because, like I said, each side is kind of territorial, but in the end, everyone is fiercely Kansas City.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like
You have
no
that
matter-
in common.
Yeah, I mean, wherever you go, it's like, where are you from? Kansas City.
Yeah.
Rarely do you say, I'm from Kansas City, Kansas, or I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. You just say, I'm from Kansas City.
I mean, you could say the same here. Like I'm proud to be able to live in Hernando, but we're all DeSoto County.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I used to live in Olive Branch, and I like Hernando better, but but it's DeSoto County. You can kind of lump it all in
Yeah.
like that. So you guys get married? Do you have kids early on, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had kids right away. Our oldest daughter, we're married in '88. She was born in '89, so
Oh wow.
we had kids right off the bat. And
This is why you guys are strong entrepreneurs. You just like you don't waste any time.
That's not. We had 3 children by like 2000, and then we adopted 2 kids. So we kind of started back over again.
Wow.
So we have 5 total, and then we have 3 grandsons.
What are the ages? What's the span of all 5 kids?
a lot. Our oldest daughter is 32,
2.
and our youngest child is 16.
No, she's 15.
15.
There you go, Mom.
I don't even remember birthdays.
Yeah.
So.
That's quite the span, for sure.
So our oldest grandson or our oldest grandchild is only 3 years younger than our youngest child.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
we spread
Spread them
so
out and
far.
started later. Well, good for you. Good
And all of
for
our
you.
kids work here,
Awesome.
work for us. So.
Another reason why it's cool, family business. yeah.
Family business.
Typical
through
mom and
through.
pop. Yeah.
So let's try to bridge to that. While in Kansas City, were you business owners early on, later in life? What was the bridge from wherever you guys were doing? I would gather some day jobs.
Sure.
What was the bridge from there to entrepreneurship?
You can kind of talk about your background in the restaurant business.
I mean, I worked in the restaurant business. I went back and forth from waiting tables to managing, mostly because I liked the stability of a paycheck when I was managing and knowing,
Not based on tips.
Yeah, and then I liked the flexibility of waiting tables, so I'd kind of go back and forth, but I never really had any kitchen experience. I just loved sweets, I loved food, so I started teaching myself how to bake and how to cook just based on watching what they were doing and thinking like, okay, what things go well together, but never really thought about doing anything with it. And then he was in the casino business and basically just did not like working for other people.
I can relate.
Yeah, I mean, when we were young, I had lots of menial jobs. I was a long-haired bum. I thought I was going to be a rock star.
We need to talk about your record collection. I've seen that on Facebook.
I thought I was going to be a rock star, but eventually I was like, oh,
I thought he was too.
So, that's the only reason she married me.
And then you're like, uh-oh.
This ain't working out so well. So eventually I was like, oh, I got to get a real job. And I found the casino business was an area for someone without a college education that you could actually advance in. And so I started out on the bottom level.
Was there an Ameristar casino back then?
It was a station casino at the time.
Okay, because I've been to the Ameristar casino.
Yeah, but I've worked for a few casinos in Kansas City, St. Louis, back to Kansas City, Denver.
Yeah.
So I've worked in a few, but
I moved here from Denver.
Yeah, I mean, I started at the very bottom, just a frontline casino services desk.
And the family
person.
moving.
Yeah,
moving around
and as
all
I
that.
got promotions, I eventually ended up as a director of marketing, and that just facilitated a few moves around the country, and so we found ourselves here.
Yeah, because I remember when I spoke to you earlier, you landed in the Ala Capri Casino in Lula, Mississippi, right?
Yep.
Did you live in that area, or did you land when you moved for your job in Lula? Was Hernando your landing spot?
It was, because I mean, when we first moved here and looked around the area, obviously Lula is about an hour from here.
Yeah.
Hernando, which we didn't know anything about the area at all.
And what year was this?
2013, 2012. Obviously, I'm not good with dates.
It has to be 2013.
Yeah, so we didn't know anything about the area. Some people said Hernando was great. This was as far away from civilization as Karin was willing to live. So, I mean, we grew up in the city.
Were you into further?
No, I was
Yeah.
fine with it. I mean, an hour commute was fine with
Yeah.
me, but both of us growing up in the city, I mean, this is the smallest town we've ever lived in.
Yeah. Oh yeah, coming from.
It
By
was
a long
a little
shot.
shock coming from, moving to the south and to a small town combined,
That's right.
So it was two
Yeah.
different things to kind of adjust to. So I was
Yeah.
like, all right, let's get, I didn't want to move somewhere that was too rural.
I moved from Maine to Nashville in '05, and that's a leap.
Yeah.
And that was a culture shock. It's totally different. And even the Midwest to the South, it's just totally different.
It just is.
You know,
Yeah.
but I went from smaller to bigger.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, you know.
That's an interesting transition,
I went from a city bigger than Hernando, but moving to Nashville, especially now, Nashville is just
Yeah, it's exploded.
it's exploded.
Yeah.
But I know that feeling. You know, you move into it. It's one thing to move from Colorado to St. Louis, you know, but
I say
the
we-
South is different.
I say we moved here for the scenery.
Yeah, all the mountains and the hills.
I do miss that.
Growing up in Kansas is funny. Everybody would always talk about how flat it is.
Yeah.
And I mean, we grew up in eastern Kansas. It's not flat. It's not flat at all.
Yeah.
And when we moved to Colorado, the first time I had driven actually across Kansas to go to Denver, I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about. It's actually flat out here.
Very.
Western, yeah.
But
Very
then when we
flat.
moved here and I drove to Lula, I was like, I have never seen any place as flat as this in my entire
and
life.
open, yeah, and open.
But yeah, it was a transition. But I mean, we moved to Hernando, and you know, it was the kids go to school here. We love the schools, and eventually, then when we opened a business, I mean, we've been embraced by this community in a way that I don't know if I was surprised, because people here are very open, and there is at this point in Hernando a lot of people who have moved here from other places.
Right here.
Yeah, but people were very accepting of us from the start, you know, and didn't have that kind of closed off mentality that, oh, you're not from here, or you're not from the South, or anything like that. It was actually pretty nice.
And it's telling. I think that's why this little market can prosper like it does.
For sure.
Everyone's helping each other out. Everyone's in it for the same reason.
Yeah.
You know, and be an entrepreneur, do your own thing, where your passion is, and make a living.
Yeah.
And pay your mortgage.
Be a
Yeah.
good person.
You know.
That's pretty much.
So let's get to Area 51. So what year did you start it, and why? Like, what was that pivotal moment that made you go like, wow, let's start a business?
It was in 2013. He had been downsized. He lost his job. And at the time, I wasn't working. I was staying home with the kids. You know, we hadn't been here that long, and
It was a little over a year when they got rid of all the director of marketing positions from our company.
And that must be brutal when you just moved across the country for a job.
Yeah, and you know, the kids, they were tired of moving. They had been established in the school for a year at this point.
Yeah.
They really didn't want to move.
I did.
Really?
She wanted to
I wanted to move back home. So we put the house on the market.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had offers on the house, but something just wasn't quite clicking about it, you know, for us. And, you know, then Karin said, what do you think about starting a business? And I was like, you know, we've always talked about starting a business. And I was like, at our ages, this is almost 8 years ago. I said, if we don't do it now, we probably never will. And we'll work
Right.
for somebody else for the rest of our lives. So,
You got to bet on yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
You got to take that chance.
and so
You know.
we definitely did that. And it was a definite adventure. We didn't know what we wanted to do. We had no clue. We kind of figured it
Wow.
might be food related, because Karin had a background in food. My background in marketing was pretty flexible, you
Yeah.
know, so.
We thought if we opened a food truck, that we could get ourselves on our feet, do it for long enough that when it was time to move back home, we could just take it with us. So
Oh,
we
okay,
thought,
yeah.
you know, it's a mobile business. It's something that we can establish and then just do whatever we want with
It
it.
kind of chiseled away some of that risk.
A little
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah.
yeah. Mitigated it a little bit.
Yeah.
And we also thought it would be, you know, more affordable because you wouldn't have so many upstart fees, you know, you wouldn't have to do a build out and everything.
But Hernando came to the rescue. No food trucks.
Yeah, that was
Oh.
over a weekend. We were trying to make a decision on an offer that we were negotiating on the house, and we declined it. And then Monday morning, we went to try and get a food truck license.
And
we
Hernando
found
doesn't
out.
allow food trucks?
No. So
Not
we
only
were,
did they not allow food trucks, we couldn't even park one here if we had it somewhere else. So
Oh,
we're
you
like,
couldn't, like, say you had one now, you couldn't have it in this back parking lot?
we couldn't have it at our house because we
couldn't
didn't
park
have
it
a
at
business.
at our house.
Oh.
So we couldn't park it.
They wouldn't
Oh,
allow
wow.
that large of a vehicle.
Oh, wow. I would have never.
And I thought, well, if we're going to do ice cream, we'll have to have it parked overnight because, you know, we'll have to have some sort of refrigeration
On the
and
whole
all
time,
that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, originally we weren't even going to do ice cream. We were going to do a grilled cheese truck.
Ooh,
Yeah.
there's some good ones in Nashville.
Only because I didn't think people would. I was thinking about bakery, but I didn't want to open like a bakery. There was already a bakery in town, and I thought, well, people aren't going to wait in line at a food truck to get lunch and then wait in a separate line to get dessert. So we'll do something savory and then also have dessert. So that's why we were like, do grilled cheese, and we'll do like brownies and cookies and things like that, cupcakes, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I decided that wasn't enough control. So I wanted to do ice cream.
So you just made the leap to ice cream. That's kind of really where you landed on ice cream.
She came out of the bedroom one day and said, "What do you think about gourmet ice cream?" I said, "Okay, let's do it." And that was the decision-making process.
It was I was very surprised. I said, don't say anything. So I tell him give him the spiel. My thing was, I thought it was great because people could try the ice cream before they buy it. I can try it before they try it. I'd have a lot of control. I could, taste it throughout, where like, if you're making somebody a sandwich, you make the sandwich and you hand it to them, you really don't know. Is that sandwich perfect,
And you can't let them sample.
No.
If you're cooking, a steak and cheese or, like a grilled cheese, you can't like hand them a cold piece of cheese and sample that.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
So for me, it was just a way to incorporate something that I really loved with a lot of control.
Yeah. Okay. So, everyone has their story as far as how they kind of fall into a business. I have mine. Mine's different. Mine was softer. It was like I was already doing this and then realized, I want to build from this.
Sure.
But what you guys did was like, I want to start a business. Now what? And you have a family and you have a mortgage. That's massive. That's a huge decision. And with so many unknowns in there,
It was
still during the first.
It was a little bizarre.
An era, at that time we hadn't fully come out of that economic situation that we were in before, so it was definitely a leap of faith for us.
Yeah.
We decided not to take out any bank loans. We just used savings, some credit
Bootstrapping.
cards, and did it all ourselves.
Maxed out all our credit cards.
And literally,
I called and got the limit increased before.
before they knew what we were doing.
Now we have something in common, but that's what you got to do.
Well, I sort of panicked a couple weeks in. I thought, what are we going to do? Because if we can't pay these credit cards off, we're going to be in trouble. Like we don't have any money left after we buy this equipment,
Yeah.
And he was like, "There's no such thing as debtor's prison."
And I sent us to prison.
Yeah. The saying, you can't take it with you when you die and all this stuff.
I don't know how much worse off we could be at the end of this than we were when we started. We didn't, besides the fact that we wouldn't have savings, that was it.
A little scary for us was, when we were younger and had kids very young, too young, we had gotten ourselves into bad financial situations with credit and stuff like that. And, at some point after, I had started working for the casino business and making a little bit more money, I say we, but Karin made the decision, we're getting out of debt. And so we got all of our debt paid off. We didn't owe any money. We didn't, the only.
What does that feel like?
It was very weird the first time we bought our first house. It was like, okay, let's go to the credit company to, talk about getting a loan for the house. And they're like, oh, you have great credit. And we're like, what? I've never heard that before.
Wow, those two words have never been put together before.
It took us almost 15 years after getting married and being.
You got to come up with that plan, right?
Yeah. So for us, then, having not been in debt for so long, other than just, mortgage payment and some car payments, not having any debt, for us to go from that to just, paying for everything out of our own pocket and realizing if this doesn't work, we're going to be in massive debt was a pretty scary proposition for us at the time.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to mortgage and children.
Yeah.
That's you guys did it probably the hard way, as far as making that decision.
Well, and we did it fast.
Yeah, you jumped right in.
No, nobody.
No, literally fast.
Like 10 weeks.
Yeah.
10 weeks. We said, let's do ice cream. 10 weeks later, we opened the business.
Okay, well, let's get back to the open part.
That Monday, so that was a Sunday that we decided, okay, this is what we're going to do. we called the realtor. We said, look, we're sorry. We're not taking the offer on the house. We're pulling it off the market, and we're going to stay here. Told the kids, went to the city, found out we couldn't do a food truck. Driving around, I was just like beside myself. I thought,
Were you thinking we should have checked on the truck first?
Yes.
well, I thought, we can't call these people back now because they're going to have that brand. You know, we were already losing money on the house if we sold that soon, you know. And so we were just driving around. We're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I was like, there's no choice. We're going to have to go to brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like driving around, and you know, we hadn't lived here too long. So in my mind, all the businesses were in South Haven or Olive Branch, you know.
Yeah, and it's easy to think that when you drive through South Haven.
Yeah.
You see the population, that seems like that's the place to be. Yeah.
So we drove around up there, you know, for hours, looking at, you know, retail spaces that were for lease, you know, making calls, finding out how much they were, thinking, is that something that we could afford? You know, how much money would we have to make per day in order to make that rent? You know, we're just, you know, and we had to pick the kids up from school. So it was like 2:30. We had just barely any time. So we came back to Hernando and we said, all right, well, let's just drive up and down and see if there's anything for lease. And we found our spot on Commerce Street down in the old Magnolia Square where we were previously.
Yep.
And we called on.
I'd gone there.
We called on that, and that ended up being the space that we had. And 10 weeks later, we were open.
So that Monday. So Sunday, you pulled the house off the market. Monday, no truck, but then you leased the place.
Pretty much.
That's fast.
Well, and we had never opened a business before.
Yeah.
Definitely never opened a food business before.
Wow.
I didn't know what,
We didn't know
what we had
anything
to
about
get for like licenses.
opening or running a business. I mean, we didn't know what to do at all. So
That's
literally
amazing.
within that 10-week period, Karin taught herself to make ice cream. She came up with all the recipes.
We barely got open 'cause I
licensing,
couldn't get a serve
the
safe.
build out of the space, all that within 10 weeks. Everything just kind
Wow.
of fell right in line.
I'm trying to put
for
that in
us.
perspective.
It
Two and
was
a
incredible.
half months.
We could
is
never
not-
do it again.
No.
Even knowing what we're doing
Wow.
now, we could never do that again.
Wow.
That's sort of how I knew that it was what we were supposed to do, because even when we were doing it, I was still sad about not moving home.
Mhm.
But at the point where it's like, okay, you know, here we go, we're going to get open. I was like, well, these kind of things don't happen. They don't fall into line like this unless you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
You can feel the spirit of it.
Yeah. I was like, all right, I guess, you know, God has other plans for us. This is what we're doing.
Right.
I'm not moving home.
And you're doing something that's yours.
Yeah.
There's so much more passion in that. It's not like you were deciding on a new job that was going to give you 20% more a year.
Or even
but
a
be
franchise.
But be miserable in an office
Sure.
or whatever.
Sure.
Or even
You
a
weren't-
franchise or
yeah.
something that you really didn't own or feel
Right.
was your baby.
Yeah.
You know, so it was definitely different. We were broke
Crazy.
the week we opened. No more savings, no more limit on the credit card. We were broke. If it didn't work, we were out of luck.
Wow.
We had, that was like, we opened the 3rd of May. So we had from May 3rd to the 1st of the next month.
to make
make
money to pay
mortgage.
To make
mortgage.
mortgage, never mind the lease, right? Or
Yeah.
I mean, all the other expenses. I would say it's a good time of year to open an ice cream place.
It was.
It was. That was happenstance. I mean,
Yeah.
again, it was like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like things just kept kind of falling into place. And we didn't get our batch freezer until, 2 or 3 weeks before we opened. So I couldn't actually start testing my recipes. I was doing them, you know, at home, but translating something that you do at home
You got to scale up.
to something, it does, it's not just multiplying it up. It was different than even I expected. I knew it would be, but you know, we just had it hooked in to the temporary electrical, and we were up there. The ground was still dug up from jackhammers, and so there were still rocks on the ground and stuff, you know, but we were like, had to hook the machine up there because that was the only place there was electrical, trying to see, you know, how does it work? How are we going to do this? You know,
Yeah, we had never used a commercial batch freezer or we barely knew what a batch freezer was at that point.
You know, I wonder, because again, everyone has a different story, and some people dream of having a business, and they know exactly what they would do. But I would say they probably overthought it. They talked themselves out of it. The way you guys did it, you put yourself in the corner. You had no choice.
Yeah.
And it was crash course, and it was just like, we got to go. And you just had that natural adrenaline and confidence that you just had to keep going because
There was no time to think, yeah.
You had no other choice.
Well, and he wanted to open a business multiple times, like over the years. He's like, we should go into business for ourselves. That way, because he had been, transferred or kind of at the mercy of somebody else, especially when we moved to Denver. It wasn't that we didn't want to move to Denver itself. It was just a bad timing in our family. We had just finalized our adoption and we wanted to stay there in town. And, it was like we had to. It was somebody else's choice. Like 3 times.
3 or 4 times. And said, no, I don't want it. And then my hand was just kind of forced. So.
But I didn't want to open a business because I had seen couples work together in the restaurant business. And I just thought,
man, that's a whole other dynamic that I didn't even think about. Yeah,
you're working with your spouse. I didn't want to work with it.
I didn't want to work with her. I mean, our whole careers, we had never worked together. And there was a time when she was offered a position at one of the casinos I worked at because they knew her and what she did. And they were like, oh, we would love to have you here.
And you're like,
and I said, I'll tell her what you said. But that's all I'm going to do. I'm not talking her into or out of it. And so I told her, and she's like, no, I'm not working with you.
You're like, no, I'm not doing this.
Well, I just didn't think it was...
Man, yes.
More or less.
I just didn't think it was smart. I had seen it in practice, and I thought, people who live and work together, I don't know. I don't think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
And...
At that point, we were much less mature, so it probably would not have worked.
Yeah.
Being a little bit older, I think it made a difference, for sure. For me.
Yeah.
She's still a little immature, but...
Hey, child at heart.
I don't hold it against her.
I mean, you make an ice cream for a living.
I mean,
who wants... it's not going to make you age and grow up.
You talk about our back being against the wall. I mean, it kind of goes back to the way we were raised. Both of us grew up very poor. I mean, neither of us had anything. She had lots of brothers and sisters. I had a fairly small family, but very, we had nothing.
Humbled. Very humbling,
lived without, both of us had similar backgrounds that lived without electricity in the home at times, or water or gas, And so I think both of us had that mentality of, we're not going to fail. This is not an option. And so when we decided to move forward with the business, it was like, okay, this is just going to happen, and we don't have a plan B.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's what I was going to say. I was just going to say I was taking little samples of the stuff I was making at home to the neighbors and dropping it off and just saying, taste this and tell me if it's any good and what
beautiful.
do you like,
Market research.
And that's how kind of the word got out that we were even doing it, so.
That's awesome. So was there a moment, you're in your new establishment, you're bootstrapping it, you're scraping by, was there a moment that you can think of where you could sit back and be like, this is working?
Day one.
Opening day.
Wow.
I mean, we were cash positive from day one.
Wow.
I mean, we never put another...
not out of debt. We still had to pay everything, but...
But people were walking through the door.
But we weren't putting any more of our money into the business for payroll or anything else.
Aside from...
The business was making its own money.
Aside from door-to-door sales marketing like that, what else were you doing? Were you just throwing it in papers and local ads? Or
We haven't ever advertised.
Man, that's amazing.
Everything we did was, I started marketing things on Facebook and Instagram, but Instagram even came later. It was almost 100% Facebook.
Yeah, back then it was.
I mean, we were at the soccer game with the kids, and I'd say, "Hey, we're going to open an ice cream shop," and they were like, "Oh, okay," I mean, it was that basically about the week that we opened. I can't remember what day of the week we opened, but it was about a week before. Steve said, "I think you need to make more ice cream to open." And it was just me. And I said, I don't know, because our fear the whole time was, we kept thinking, okay, 100 people a day have to come in. in order for us to, or whatever it was.
That's a good way.
I
That's a
don't
good way to
remember.
measure it. If we want to be cash positive, we need this
Like-
amount of people.
Yeah.
So how much ice cream?
If we're going
do
to
we
make our
need?
rent payment, which is what I thought, basically at that point I was like, we're just going to make our rent payment. We're going to be able to pay the electric bill. We just need that. If we can just do that, we're going to be okay. So I was like, we need 100 people a day to come in. And so I was like, how are we going to find 100 people a day to come into to a shop?
Yeah.
Like, that's so
That
many
no one
people.
knows about.
You know? And so I was like, kept trying to think, how are we going to get enough? And he said, I think we need more ice cream. I think we're going to have more than that. And I was like, I don't know. And then we opened, and our oldest son was
14.
at 14.
Yeah.
We had kind of, to sort of get the kids invested in the business and the idea of it, they had been tasting ice cream, and we had taught our son how to use the little POS system that we were using at the time, because he could hit, single scoop and drink, and, just kind of for fun at the dining table. And there were people lined up to the door, and they were going outside, and, it was just us and I think one other person.
It was just me and you that day.
I thought we had one other person, maybe not.
Because it was during the
I
day.
thought we had Cavazos or something.
That was during the day.
Anyway.
Man.
And so it was like, we were just like, oh my gosh, we don't know what we're doing. And all of a sudden I look over, and my son had come up to the cash register just on his own and was like, can I get you a drink with that? And was just started working.
Again, another moment of things falling into place.
And that was like, okay.
So he was our day one first employee.
Could you soak it in? Were you so busy? So that's probably like, oh my God, yes. But when did it sink in? Like, wow, this is special.
It took a while for me, because, the dog was walking me. I didn't have any staff in the kitchen. I didn't have,
Right.
I was staying until wee hours of the night working, because I had to get the stuff ready for the next day, because we didn't have anything.
And never mind administration, bookkeeping, and
Yes.
Yeah, all that came later. It clicked for me, because I was working in the front of the house, and I got to hear, and I kept trying to translate the stuff to Karin, but all the positive comments. I mean, we opened around a corner from an ice cream place that had been here for 60 plus years, and everybody was like, you guys are crazy, what are you doing? I'm like, well, we just don't do what they do. This is something
you got to
different.
differentiate yourself.
And the super positive comments about how amazing her ice cream was and all that stuff. So to me, I was hearing all that from jump. And so to me, I was like, wow, we're on to something
I
here.
was just
This
like,
is
I don't know
really
what I'm
cool.
doing. I got to figure this out. I can't produce enough ice cream. I can't get any sleep.
Before we opened, I was on Facebook and trying to, build the Facebook page. And I remember I got 100 people, on our page, and she was like, oh my God, that's too many people. I don't know what we're going to do. And then I was like, okay, a couple days later, I'm like, okay, there's 150. And, before, I think around when we opened, there was probably 350, almost 400 people or something like that. And she was flipping out over that. I'm like, listen, that's not a lot. Understand that's not going to translate into 400 people showing up on day one.
Small percentage for sure. Let's talk about flavors now. Do you remember what that first run of flavors that you pushed out?
Oh, yeah.
What were they?
Oh, yeah. Well, back then we only had 12.
Only.
Yeah. Well,
you think of Baskin Robbins.
Sure. What do they have? 31?
33.
33?
Yeah.
I thought, well, this isn't very many, whatever. And what our flavors were when we started were what ended up becoming our signature flavors now, or our daily flavors, the ones we have every day. So the cinnamon snickerdoodle, that's been there since day one. Bourbon butter pecan, that's thanks to the guys down at the, what was the name of that shop down there? The antique shop.
Oh.
The brothers owned Buddies or something.
Buddies Antique.
Before it got, that's why we have bourbon butter pecan.
The one right here on...
Right here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They
yeah.
said, you're going to have butter pecan, aren't you? I was like, I hadn't planned on it. And they were like, well, you got to have butter pecan. This is the South. And I thought, okay. So I went home and decided to make a butter pecan, the mint chocolate chip. The cookies and cream, I thought, well, if we do, the things I want to do, which are kind of out of the box and a little bit different than, if you just walked into a regular ice cream shop, I got to have some approachable flavors and something
staples.
for kids that, if they don't find something that's, I don't want to try something weird, I can try cookies and cream, I can try Dutch chocolate, vanilla, all those flavors. But I had written up, as soon as he said that day, I said, what about ice cream instead? He's like, okay. And I said, oh, okay. He's like, make it happen. And he said, well, what flavors are you going to make? I'm like, I don't know. And so I started writing them down in a notebook, and I still have that notebook.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And one of my favorite things that I still have is I have a little piece of scratch paper, because that was in June. We talked to Cedar Hill. We're like, we need some berries. We want to make some fresh stuff. He's like, okay, blackberries is what I have coming up next. So I had a little list.
And Cedar Hill's local.
Right.
farm.
We wanted to work with local farm, and we knew of them because I think we had been down there at Halloween, time to the pumpkin patch or something. And so we talked to them. They're like, okay, blackberries are next. So I made a little list of all the blackberry flavors I thought I could make, and there was like a dozen on there. It's like a back of an envelope or something.
That's interesting. So you have one produce, but then you just all these different things you can do with that one.
Just brainstorming. It was just like, okay, I can do this, I can do this. I showed Steve, and he's like, this one or this one, and one of them was the goat cheese. And I said, well, I'm going to start with the goat cheese, because if I'm going to make something a little more, unusual, I should start with that and then back up, because if I start with just a blackberry ice cream, it's going to be hard to get people to try blackberry goat cheese. Where if I make blackberry goat cheese, then I can always do something, a little bit more simple afterward. And so I started making the blackberry goat cheese. I never made another blackberry flavor. Never even got through.
Oh, wow.
Because we don't have enough blackberries to make a different flavor with it.
But that one did so well. Popular. You're like, why not?
Yeah. It's by far it exploded, really.
So I've never had goat cheese ice cream before. What is it like? Is it a texture? Is it like a tang to it?
Yes, it's both. It kind of has a cheesecake quality. So
I'm sold.
that first summer, and still sometimes, people that haven't been in, they make a little face, they don't want to try it, the goat cheese, and I'm like, just try it.
Yeah.
If you like cheesecake, we tell them you'll love it.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about this. And then they come back and.
I think the word goat is probably what throws people off, right?
Yeah, it is. For sure.
Yeah.
You could have just called it a blackberry cheesecake.
And they would have they would have been like, oh, this is a great cheesecake ice cream. Yeah.
That might have been a good idea. Thanks for telling me now.
All these years later, right?
I think in the end it worked out better. We have to limit how many people can buy, how many pints they can buy when we put that flavor out, because it's so popular. It's crazy.
So what year, how many years were you in that brick and mortar, that lease?
We just moved here January of this year. So it's been almost a year that we've been here.
Okay.
So, 7 years?
7 years, yeah.
So it was a really bad timing to move. As far as it was in the middle of,
COVID.
Well, not in the middle, but, about a year into COVID, things were still very up in the air. Mm-hmm. But we had been looking for a bigger location in Hernando pretty much, for years.
Yeah.
And there was nothing open that would really allow us to have the kitchen and the front of the house in the same building. We had outgrown that other space, and we'd moved our kitchen into another building. So we were having to take everything from here to there every day. And so we found this and we thought, oh, I know what we can do in there. We could see it. And so again, we just sort of were like, all right, well, let's just do it.
Another leap of faith.
Yeah.
So I brought this up because of COVID. I think it's important for other business owners to hear a story of how someone else in the industry or marketplace survived through COVID, not the disease, the business, the shutdown. So you're in your original location for 2020. What was that like? When did it become like, oh my, like, did the business slow down and then the shutdown came in, or what was that period?
It was kind of a little bit of both. Obviously, at the beginning of COVID, no one knew what it was for sure, and it was very scary.
Yeah.
Business really didn't pull back until they started saying that there are going to be mandates and things like that. When that happened, it pretty much was like everything was pretty normal as far as level of business goes at the other shop. Then they started talking about closing businesses and stuff like that. And then I think that really kind of frightened people. And so there was a definite slowdown that started there. Then they said that, you couldn't have people inside your business. And for us, that really just didn't work. And we said, well, we're just going to close the doors for right now. Wait a couple weeks, because at this point they're still saying, a couple weeks and, a few weeks. So we said, well, we'll shut down for a couple weeks and wait it out. And so we did that. We closed. And
we kind of open and close, because it was real confusing. There was no roadmap for that.
Yeah.
Nobody said, yes, you need to close today. It was like, we just watched the news. We're like, okay, are we supposed to close today?
And they announced shutdown,
Yeah.
So it was a little jerky movement.
Yeah. But then, so then it got to a point where, we talked to our local guy, Michael McClendon, who is in the state legislature, and said, listen, we have to have a little bit of relief here. Can we at least have people come into the business and leave, and just not have people inside the dining room? And so he worked with the city of Hernando and got that changed to where that we were able to do that. And that was a tremendous help for us. And so once we started that, really business picked up almost immediately.
So even in the heart of it, like we're talking May, June?
Right in the heart of it. I mean...
April, May, June? Wow.
Yeah, people were totally willing. Again, Hernando is a great place to operate a small business because people have an appreciation for small business owners here. And so as soon as we said, hey, we're going to be open back up, unfortunately, you can't be in the dining room.
They're like, okay.
It's going to be to go. They didn't care.
I'll take the goat cheese
said,
home.
Hey, we'll come support you guys. And so, immediately business picked back up for us.
It was a different story in Memphis.
Oh, yeah.
Tennessee, we lost our business in Tennessee over COVID.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely different up there. But the people down here, I mean, it was a huge blessing, and it really made us feel good to know that people here not only supported us, but other small businesses as well.
Yeah.
And all the small businesses kind of felt like they were in it together. We all communicated with each other. Hey, what are you doing to, with this or that, to, get around some of these things, to work with So it was very tight-knit feeling kind of coming out of that scary part of it.
Sadly, that's unique, right?
Yeah.
Even up to the local politics, like your local politician also was there doing what he was supposed to do for the people. The people helped the people, and you all got through it together. Wow, what a concept.
Yeah. And it's like, well, we don't have a drive-through. We don't have a way for people, You can't really pull up to the outside of our building, have us come out, tell you what we have, go back in, get it, bring it back out. It's not that kind of business. You need to be able to just come in, pick up your stuff, and leave.
Yeah.
And, we had a lot of young people working for us. We had one employee who just opted just not to come back. Kids,
which is fine.
Their parents.
It was still very scary. All of that.
Yeah, because there's so unknowns.
Didn't want them working.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of adjustments. It's just we were supported enough that we were able to stay open through it. It was different, but we came out the other side.
Did you have to adjust your product as far as maybe not making as many flavors or downsizing to save costs?
There were just a lot of supply chain issues.
Oh, there's that too. I didn't think about. Yeah.
It was really difficult. That year was a bad year for blackberries too. They had it had nothing to do with just COVID weather or supply chain. It was a weather thing. They had some plants that were diseased and weren't producing correctly, so they were down on blackberries. I couldn't get pint cups to save my life. Then I couldn't get something else, I couldn't get whatever it was. It was constantly, there was 2 things we were short that we had to have. And then it was 2 different things. Those things would get, would resolve itself, or we'd find a different option to get those. And then it was 2 different things. And, we still have a little bit of that now.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, okay, that's not going to work. We'll just do this and pretend like that was the idea in the first place.
You got to zig when they zag.
Yeah.
Right? It's
kind of like when we opened. Failure wasn't an option. So, I mean, it was like, we'll just work through this problem. We're not going to throw our hands up and say, oh, just because we can't get pint cups, we're not going to serve pints. that wasn't an option, you
Yeah.
know. So just work through those things, you know.
I mean, yeah, we did some. That was a crazy.
You
That was a crazy
you
summer.
have to have some resolve.
Oh.
You have to have some
Crazy.
resolve.
Yeah.
We drove to Kansas City to get some supplies. I mean, it was.
Again, no failure. You just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, we couldn't get the dairy that we needed here from the supplier, and they said, but we have it in our Kansas City warehouse, but we can't get it here. I'm like, all right, I'll drive there.
Time to go.
And so
It was that or closed down. I was like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I think we missed a day of business.
Yeah, I
We closed
think
down
we
for a
missed
day.
a
You just got to trade
But
it off.
Drove to Kansas City, picked it up, drove it back, you know. No plan B.
Yeah. Well, look, I'd like to, kind of wrap this up with, how this has made you guys as a family, but also as individuals, like the amount of accomplishments and success. Now you're in this new amazing place. It's beautiful. You just moved here this year, right?
Yeah.
For context, it's December 2021. When you look back through this journey, and we've talked about all these interesting bullet points of your journey, how do you feel now? What kind of sense of accomplishment and comfort do you feel, and pride do you feel now, or are you still having trouble seeing the forest through the trees because you're just in it?
I have always felt I'm this close to failing.
Yeah.
Always. And I think and I think Karin feels the same way. And I think that's the thing that keeps
It's a
driving us.
motivator,
Even
yeah.
when we've been at the height of business and there was no COVID and there were no problems, I always felt like, oh my gosh, we're so close to not making it. I mean, and so I think that kind of is a driver that, it's not that I'm some crazy ambitious person, because I'm not like, one of those, Steve Jobs guys who's going to step on people's heads so I can get ahead myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I just always feel like I'm about to fail. So let's keep moving.
See, yeah.
Let's keep moving
I
forward.
think I see it a little bit differently. I just know that failure is it's a step away. Like, it's just so easy. Anything could happen. You don't know. I mean, we didn't see COVID coming. We didn't see supply chains coming. Who knows? It's just, there's just so many unknowns that it's like, you just never really feel rested. That like, okay, now we're kind of, sailing or something.
The minute you get comfortable, then you start falling behind.
But we can see the 10,000-foot view as well. Because I mean,
that was
we
Food,
know
Food
where we've
Network
come
magazine.
from.
Yeah.
That was it for me.
We know where we've come from.
When you had an article in the magazine.
Yeah, when they reached out to us and said, hey, we want to do an ice cream issue and we want to feature you for the state, and we had done other ones, BuzzFeed and Yahoo, and some of the ones that I thought, wow, this is great. Wow, this is great. Wow, this is great. But Food Network, I was like, all right, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool. Seeing that in print, I thought, all right,
You've made a mark.
that's I'm good from there.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, what if we get shut down again? And that could be it.
Yeah.
So you just don't. I don't know. I just don't feel.
I think every business owner can relate to this.
Yeah.
It's that vicious cycle, but that's what makes you an entrepreneur.
But you
wanna
can't throw
keep
your hands
going.
up.
No, you got to keep going.
I mean, we've thrived as a business. We thrived through COVID. I mean, we did better through COVID than we did before COVID happened. So, I mean, it's a matter of taking the situation, making the best of the situation, and saying, how can I not fail?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not, oh, woe is me. Oh, these things are happening to me. It's terrible. They're happening to everyone. But you have to say, what is the thing that's going to drive me forward? What's the piece that's going to drive us forward? For us, it was opening a bigger shop. To me, we felt very limited in the amount of space we had there. We found this place. The building was a total disaster.
Oh, really?
I mean, a total.
What was
disaster.
here before?
Lots of different things. The last thing was like a T-shirt print shop.
Oh, okay.
And we had to start from scratch.
I mean,
Just totally gut it out.
Totally gut it, and start completely over. But that was the thing that was going to drive us forward. And, it worked. The people of this town reacted the way that we thought they would. Oh, there's more space. I'm able to spend more time with my family and bring more of our kids there and not feel like, we're being confined in this smaller space.
That's probably the coolest thing about being here for me is, before when we had to move the kitchen off site, I didn't get to see the customers. Now I'm like, oh,
You can pop out,
so and so's here. I'm going to go say hi real quick or whatever. Or, we have people who've been bringing their kids in. They were in a car seat, and they were carrying them in the little, carrier and setting them on the table. And now they're like running around in second grade. And I'm like, hey,
playing sports and doing all the things our kids were doing at that age.
Yeah.
You kind of get invested in those people and just knowing that, they're with that. They're with you, they're with you on that journey, and you see them. And it's like, we have one family in particular that I know that, they would come in and they would fill the whole shop because there's so many of them. And it was like, I knew sometimes they probably didn't come because there wasn't enough room. And now I see them and I'm like, they can sit at the community table and spread out, and I love that for them because ice cream was such a big part of my childhood, which is why I probably love ice cream so much,
Yeah.
Just my memories around having ice cream, or my dad making ice cream at the park, or sitting on the hood of the station wagon eating ice cream, and watching people do that. I love it.
I think outside of eating ice cream in your living room, coming scooping it out of a pint or whatever, that's amazing. We all love ice cream.
Yeah.
But when you have ice cream outside or in another location, it's, I would say, always surrounded by a fun atmosphere as part of it. You're getting an ice cream cone at the ball game.
We love being a part of people's family
park.
memories.
Yeah.
Because like she said, it's such a, significant part of her childhood, and to a lesser degree mine. My family didn't eat as much ice cream, but her family, that was a big treat for them to go out, and so that was a memory that she's held on to. And so for us to know that we're creating those little moments and memories for people and their families, it's pretty special.
I've seen little babies take their first bite of ice cream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, to me, that's the cool part.
Yeah.
I love the fact that people like the flavors. I love the fact that, I see something in my head and I get from point A to point B and it is what I thought it was going to be. That part's really fun, but I just love watching people eat ice cream.
There was a couple that came into the original shop, Billy and Shelly Capgun. He's in a punk rock band. They're, very cool people, and we kind of hit it off personally right off the bat. And years later, they had a baby, and they brought the baby into this shop, and I went over and was saying hi and something. They were like, "Oh, it's his very first taste of ice cream." And I was like, "Wow, man, that's pretty special." They will always remember that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'll always remember that too.
Yeah, there's only one first.
Yeah.
The first of anything.
And they felt, let's make it special by going out to an ice cream place instead of, oh, we're sitting at home and here's some Breyers, ice cream. It's their first ice cream. Yeah. They made it a point to
they got French vanilla. At least they upgraded a little bit.
Yeah, making those memories for people and us is pretty special.
So I want to give you guys the opportunity to promote yourself and where to find you and everything. But one last question. I'm going to get corporate on you, like a corporate interview question, standard question. Where do y'all see yourselves as a business in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, do you have any ambitions, goals, or?
That's a good question.
We've never really set out that kind of plan.
Yeah.
We always said our growth will happen naturally. When we moved into the crosstown, it happened naturally. We've had other opportunities to grow. Just things didn't click. So we're like, nah, we'll pass up on that right now. Even though financially it probably would have been a great thing, it just didn't feel comfortable. So, right now we're exploring a couple other options for expanding. We'll see how they go. If they feel comfortable and it feels like the right thing at the right time, then we'll move forward with that.
I think I would feel happy I don't know. Again, if you would have told me 10 years ago I'd be a business owner, let alone an ice cream business owner, I would have thought you were insane.
Yeah.
It just didn't seem like something that was going to be part of my story.
Yeah.
But I think I would just like to kind of expand what we offer here, push out some more of my baked goods, kind of, just build this into what I think it could be, in this building.
Yeah,
just with more space and more opportunity.
There's something to be said of having that one thing and not branching out too much in business.
We definitely focus on our core. The core is ice cream. It's the star.
The
ice cream. The star of the show.
And then now you got this new home here. It's so awesome in here. So
we love it.
This is This is the building block.
When we put it
here.
on paper, it was Karen's vision. And unlike a lot of times when you expand, and when we built in Crosstown, and actually when we opened the original shop, we didn't compromise. This is what she saw, and this is what we were able to build, which is pretty special that we didn't have to compromise anything. So when somebody comes in and sees this was our vision. This is what we wanted to present to people.
And I'll add what it looks like on the outside too.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. You see it. When you drive down Commerce, you don't miss Area 51. but in a good way.
Yeah.
You know, being absurd
Well,
and like blinking lights and clowns.
When we were
it's
at our
just-
other spot, there were people like they live in Hernando. They were like, "Oh, we never knew you were there." It's like, "Oh, okay." You know,
Yeah.
they drive up and down Commerce Street, never saw it. Now it's like, "Oh,
Having a standalone building that we could make ours and put the kind of signage up that we wanted, and
Right.
this kind of facade we wanted on the building. You know, definitely, like I said, it was her vision, and it came to fruition pretty much exactly like she saw it from the start.
Well, let's cap this off with some call to action here. Again, as I said on the front end, there's going to be a subset of audience that don't know you, that don't know the business. They're just learning this for the first time.
Sure.
So where is the building? What's the address?
Sure, go ahead.
100 East Commerce Street."
Okay.
We're just across from the DeSoto County Museum.
And
That's-
how about your social platforms, website?
We're
You know?
primarily on Facebook. You can find us just by looking up Area 51 Ice Cream. We are on Instagram as well. I try not to beat people over the head, with advertising.
Yeah.
Word of mouth has been, amazing for us. The ice cream sells itself. We don't have to sell the ice cream. We just try to provide a friendly atmosphere, great customer service. The kids we hire are fantastic and do a great job, and they're great ambassadors for what we see as our vision. So, we don't have to beat people up. So if you want to go to those places, you can find us. Look up any reviews. We're more than happy to keep our reviews on our site. A lot of people, they get a couple bad reviews and they pull the reviews off of their social media and stuff.
Yeah.
And we're like, it's going to happen every once in a while. But so we keep all that stuff up. So if you question whether you want to come here or not, look up some of the reviews and see what you think.
The best thing to me, he does all the Facebook stuff. I don't do social media, but is that we post our flavors every day.
I saw that, yes.
So if there's something that you're waiting to see, hey, is that one, we just brought gingerbread back for the season, or, if there's a favorite that you have or whatever, you can look up and see what there is. And then, okay, that's when I want to make sure I get in for. And so to me, that's really cool because you get to know ahead of time what we're going to have.
Yeah. Well, look, I can't wait to spread the love with this podcast and this awesome interview. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
And this is, come find us on the Real Hernando page, at the Real Hernando, Instagram, at the Real Hernando. We're going to be promoting businesses like yourself and people like yourself on these platforms, and maybe you can throw them on your pages, and
absolutely.
It's just a way to spread the word. So thank you for being here. And I, just really appreciate it.
Yeah. And if you're looking at us on social media, or you guys, if to help support small businesses, share those things you see on social media. Hit share, like. That actually makes a big difference and helps small businesses not spend as much money on marketing and advertising.
Did you read my script? It's amazing.
It makes a huge. It really does
He's
make
a
a huge
reformed
difference.
marketing guy.
Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to dovetail on that and talk to the listeners and viewers that, yes, please share this episode too. Like if you're listening or watching this right now, share it on your socials. Amplify and highlight this awesome couple in business. In the community that is Hernando, Mississippi. As I mentioned, you can find us on therealhernando.com is also our website. There you'll be able to absorb and look at this content in audio, video, and text format. You can subscribe for free on the website. And as I mentioned, we're on Instagram and Facebook. Both are at The Real Hernando. Karin, Steve, the story behind Area 51 Ice Cream, thank you for doing this. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
We appreciate it.